Hello, welcome everyone to the London WebFest International Q&A. Let's start it out right with a Happy New Year. Thanks so much for joining us. I'm Saul Marin, I'm the Festival Director for the London WebFest. And this is our first panel session for the 2021 series. Now, as you can probably tell from the title, today's panel features filmmakers from our official selections, working both sides of the lens. It's producers and directors from short films and web series who are performing both behind and in front of the camera. So wearing a lot of hats, really. If at any time during the chat you want to ask our performers a question, just type it in on either YouTube or Facebook and we'll try and get it posed to them. Now, before I bring them into the chat, I think it's only right that we see a clip of their amazing work.
I think we broke them.
Guys?
Oh, you're joshing us.
Oh.
I was all like, right now, I was like, right now.
Right now? Like right
on
now
the counter. Over these muffins.
Yes, girl.
Why are you so worried about Savannah? She's fine.
I don't know, like nobody's listening? Like, what does she even do these things anyway?
She's following her dreams. I would love to have a dream like that.
You do have a dream. To be a young mom. It's just less cool, doesn't make it less important.
Hey, where are you?
Making a coffee.
God, you work hard.
I work very hard, thank you. And I'm actually the big boss today. Charlie's crook.
I think she might be pregnant.
I thought she doesn't want kids.
Yeah, but she's been off a lot lately and talking about succession plans. John, my bump dial is buzzing.
That's not a thing.
Gut, dann guck die Schwangerschaft mal an. Möchtest du sie vielleicht umarmen? Oder wäre das zu viel?
Okay. I think we made a great first impression. Okay, that was good. That was good.
You think that was good?
Yeah. Did you hear what he said? Silverlight Studios thinks that we're great. They love us.
They don't even know us, man. He was walking out the door as soon as we started talking.
Mr. Harmon, I ain't got no grain, no yeast, no sugar, and I got no money. And now I ain't got no more biscuits.
I'll make sure the boys get you what you need.
Hi, welcome everybody. Thanks so much for joining us.
Hello.
Hi. Michelle, just for a second, she had some audio troubles, but she will be back. How are you all doing today? Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Thanks so much for being here. Obviously, it's completely different time zones. For people watching, it's currently nighttime in London, mid-afternoon, I'd say, in America. And for the lovely Trisha, it's 7:30 in the morning. So she's an absolute trooper. That dedication to film, if ever I've seen it. I think we'll just start off very simply. And just if you tell us who you are, what show or web series you're in, and the kind of the different hats that you wear in that show. I'll start from left to right as I see it. Ray, why don't we start with you?
Sure. So my name is Ray Harrington. I am a part of Undependent. And as far as hats, I think there's just one hat everybody wore, but we kind of traded places. Yeah, I was the writer, director, and a performer in the show as well.
Fantastic. Lisa, tell us about yourself.
Yeah, I'm Lisa Barron Ray. I was part of Becoming Kelly, which is a comedic pilot. And I was a co-writer, co-director, and also played Lila, one of the people at, I don't know, like the star. Do you say that? I feel like one of them.
Pick yourself up. It's fine. Sophie. So Sophie and Ken are both from the same show, also with you. Why don't you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, I'm Sophie Mashofsky. Ken and I co-wrote, co-produced, and co-starred in Also With You.
Wow.
So I guess I took everything that he's supposed to say.
So ditto.
And Trisha, you're next.
Hi, yep, Trisha Morrison, and I make a web series called 30, the series, which I write, I act in, and I produce.
Fantastic. Ken, just a whole bunch of new words I want from you. Just something completely fresh.
Monkey banana cake.
That sounds like a difficult job. Really well done. That's good. And finally, Alice, tell us about your show.
Yeah, I'm the director and writer and producer of the web series Lou von Loser, and I am also playing Lou, the main character.
Fantastic.
And I'm in Germany, Cologne at the moment.
Yeah, another time zone that I missed out. Talking about all the different hats that you're wearing, I'm going to keep using that expression for want of a better one. What do you think the positives come from that? Where do you see that being a strength because notoriously short films and web series often have less funding, often there's more people doing more work. Yeah, where are the strengths in having that much control, do you think?
I'll jump in. Why
Yes,
not? I know I learned a ton. Like everything I mentioned, co-wrote, co-produced, co-direct, with 2 other people. The main star of this, Valerie Lassard and Brian Fitzgerald. And they teach me a lot. Like, I'm not a super experienced actress. I'm more behind the camera. So I know just watching them and being with them, you get so much energy from actors that are really seasoned. And so I just learn a lot, frankly.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I didn't know. Oh, hi.
Hi, Alice. Welcome back. Welcome back.
I didn't really know what I accidentally produced 30 in season 1 because I didn't really know what a producer was at all. I just thought I was writing and acting it and then just making it happen. And so, yeah, I guess like Lisa, it's been like a big learning curve because then I've got to pick up new skills and learn something entirely new to myself. So that's a good thing. And then, of course, budget. Keeping the budget down is definitely a pro.
Fantastic. It's a difficult thing actually to you kind of like when you hold the purse strings, it's very easy thinking you're being, selective, and then something like, where's the bank account gone? Where's that all disappeared to?
Yeah, I think so much of it is out of necessity. Obviously, I think we would all be like, oh yeah, let's have everybody have an individual position, and we'll have 100 people work on this, and it'll be perfect. But I think a lot of times we end up, obviously we have to do multiple roles. But I do think one of the benefits, more to the point of your question, is the vision that you have from the start of something can much better resemble that in the final work, because you don't lose anything in translation when you're communicating between 4 people. If you are the writer and the director, you're directing exactly what you saw in your head. Hopefully, if everybody can do their jobs the best that they can. And I think you lose a lot of that when you start playing a game of telephone with people. So that is a positive, right?
I completely agree with Ray. It's like there's no question that what you imagine will come to fruition, and there's a whole lot more love and appreciation for your own project when you're doing what feels like everything. So then when it actually becomes a film or a series, then it's very, very rewarding knowing that you are a part of many different sides of things.
So I'll just catch Michelle up. Basically, we're talking about wearing all the different hats when producing. What is the positives to that? If you want to, I think because you missed out, if you'd like to tell us who you are and what show you're on and what different jobs you did in that, and then we'll all be caught up today.
Sure, yeah. So my name is Michelle Snyder, and I'm from Ohio in the States, and the series is called Ruthless, and I was the director, and I also acted in the film. So like you said, independent films, multiple hats, it kind of goes together. I think 2020 was a little scary for people, but I think for independent filmmakers, it's almost like, well, this is status quo. This is what we do. We work with limited budget. We work with limited crew. We work remotely a lot. So I think this was almost a time to shine.
There is that thing with kind of independent film where, as you were saying, Sophie, like everybody's on board. And when a decision does get changed, like Ray was saying, there's 4 of you or 5 of you who, you have to adapt as you move along because things always arise every day or when filmmaking. But if everyone's in it together, there's no surprises, and you still end up with a product that you're all happy with.
Right, and I think it's more teamwork. It's more of a family, like you mentioned. When it's a small, 4 and 5 people, even 10 and 15, people take more ownership of it because, like you said, everyone's multiple hats. It's a family. It's more fun, and this is supposed to be fun.
And you mentioned 2020 there. Has that affected? Because, as you rightly said, people who are making independent film, I tend to be in that situation anywhere, which is all hands on deck and all go. Has it affected your filmmaking at all, or even how you've marketed or kind of like publicized your work? Has there been a benefit to it because everyone's indoors, or what's possible negative to it all?
For me, I see it as a benefit too, especially with the web series where people, they're stuck at home and they, they're watching TV even when in line to pick up their kids from school. So you can market it that way, and it's short and it's quick, and you don't have to dedicate an hour to it. So I think being creative and marketing things differently is absolutely a benefit in 2020.
Yeah, it might have been a plus for me as well because I was. After I've shot the whole thing, I sold it to a TV channel, and I guess it was also good timing because I think they had also more money because they didn't produce as much as they normally would. So I got the leftover money, maybe. Who knows?
Amazing.
So that was kind of handy, yeah.
So I need to go to Germany? Is that what we're... Yeah.
It feels like we all need to go to Germany. That's
I kind of had a double-edged sword kind of situation with Undependent. It was originally shot as a pilot. Myself and a couple of other people involved. We were talking to a network here in the States, and things were going great. And then COVID happened, and so their entire slate of even looking at anything just was put on indefinite hold. And we were sitting on this 2-episode pilot and weren't sure what to do with it. And so we decided to recut it as a web series. And it's 6 episodes. Each episode is broken into 3 web episodes. So thankfully the act structure was strong, so we were able to do that. But I think adaptation is something that we're all dealing with right now. Platforms are changing, the way everything is done is changing, and I mean it's not any. We've all seen it slowly over like the past however many years, a decade. But I think this entire process has just been fast tracked. Everything that's happening is kind of speeding up either the demise of certain things or the growth of other avenues. I
mean, that's testament to your work, honestly, because I would never have guessed that was 2 episodes cut into 6. That is very structure. Anybody else? How is it? How has COVID been for you? I hate to ask the question, but it feels like it's the most.
Does anybody ever say like, "Oh, it's awesome"?
Yeah, 2020 has been the best year.
Yeah,
ever.
No,
The silence from the crowd is deafening. I'll move on. I mean, we talked about the positives of wearing all the hats. What have you found, especially if, like Tricia was saying, it's the first time producing something when maybe originally you were but you were a performer in front of the camera. What did you learn the hard way, I suppose, is the question. What tips can you give to people, young filmmakers, new filmmakers, new producers who might be watching this, to kind of like, this was a huge mistake, or this cost us a lot of money had we only known?
Maybe a good first AD would be good next time, because I didn't really have that. I mean, I had a few people, but they weren't really inside the story as as much. So they were helpful on set, but more like not too much on a content-wise level. So I think next time I would like to have someone from the start who's involved in the scripts and in the characters and how I imagine everything to be, just in the whole preparation process. I think that's my learning thing.
And sometimes I find sometimes on these the smaller projects, like I get really nervous of having too many people around because kind of like what Ray was saying. I mean, things can get lost in translation when it's this small, you know. And what I have learned is that is so stupid. Like you need production assistants on there. Someone's got to manage lunch because like what, you know, you're in the middle of a scene and you're like, did someone order lunch on time for SAG? You know, it's just like so stupid. So if I was to go back like years ago when I first started, it's like always have a producer on set like that's handling that, or production assistants that are like eager and ready and smiling, like most important thing.
Yeah, similar to Lisa.
I was gonna say that. Oh, sorry. No, go please.
So polite.
No, I was
I like it.
thinking about
You could be
food.
British.
I was like,
This is
I was so lucky to have Sophie.
It's all an act.
Shut up.
Rich, why don't you go first?
Sophie, because we would bounce. At the end of each day, even when we were exhausted, we would say, "Okay, what went well today? What do we want to fix for tomorrow?" And without a doubt, food always. Food and where are the shoes? Who's keeping track of the shoes? That was big for us for some reason.
The shoes.
That is new.
One actor, no names, I'm the only other actor, would lose his shoes, and we would have to find the shoes. I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, I think I just would have a couple more people around so that we could get more sleep, because we were the first ones up. We'd wake up very early, get our hair, camera ready, be the first ones on set, do the whole day, come back, rework wardrobe, talk about the day. I'd go home and get crafty ready for the next day and prep catering and finally be in bed. And shooting a week on that schedule is not quite sustainable. So getting more help would be what I would change next time.
Time is I think the biggest commodity. I mean, that's an obvious statement, but when it comes to you know, wearing multiple hats, directing and performing in Undependent, we had 4 days to shoot both episodes. So, you know, 45 minutes of you know, film at the end of it with 4 days was just ridiculous. And, you know, directing a scene before we started shooting and then jumping into, you know, the position of you know, co-lead on the thing was really crazy. And I really wish we had more time to kind of separate those two things and work more on, you know, directing and giving that direction to our camera operators, and our my co-producer was kind of stepping in as an AD there. But it was it's crazy. It's crazy to balance those two things. I'm sure everybody that you know, is a performer director on this panel can agree. Like it's kind of nuts to turn that off, and then once the camera's rolling, really try and give that performance what you're hoping it can be, and then shut it off again, and then give notes to the person you're performing across, which is, I think, the hardest part. So have an understanding actor across from you that can appreciate that you have to do both things, and really just afford as much time as possible, because you eat it up.
Yeah, and having some time to rehearse, I think, is very important too, especially when you're on both sides of the camera. It helps with continuity and everything. If you just go right into filming, the actors are still feeling out what feels most natural to them in the scene, and so they're going to do things differently. And you've started filming, and that's when you have continuity issues. And so for us, that would be one thing I'd work on next time, is having a little bit more time just to rehearse, make the actors feel comfortable before we start rolling.
It does seem to be a luxury when it comes to kind of independent film. The rehearsal is almost, you know, you have 4 days or a week. This is as many scenes as you have to get through. This is when you do have to break for lunch. This is when we, you know, the DOP has to go home that day. I think it's often the case that, yeah, rehearsals aren't always there, and it can make or break a project. It's amazing the difference.
And if you have to be on camera as and you're directing, and you're going to spend a lot of time in front of the camera, really giving yourself enough time to communicate fully with your DP, or if you don't have a DP, if it's your camera operator, whoever. Definitely communicating with them as much as humanly possible, because they have to fill a little bit of that gap that you won't be able to do when you're in front of the camera. That communication, for us, it took maybe a day and a half for myself and the director of photography to finally kind of click in on the tone of the show that we were trying to make. I think if we had had more time up front, maybe the 4 days would have felt like 4.5.
Wait, I have to jump in here. If I do a 45-minute piece in 4 days, did that blow someone else's mind? I do short films for like 15 minutes tops in 4 days, and I'm like, oh my god, it's been such a hard day. Like, I can't even understand how you did that. That's wild.
Yeah, well, I mean, the format allowed us a little bit of leeway. The format is, mockumentary style, so we can kind of cheat a little bit with not worrying about too much setup or, reverse shots and stuff like that. We can kind of move very quickly. It's a light kind of machine to move through, but it's still, it's still all the pages in 4 days. So yeah,
you chose very well with your scenes. There's one that is all in somebody else's apartment. There's one that's all in, you two brainstorming. It's kind of like, here's a chunk of work we can get done in this one location, but you don't really notice it happening. It's very well done.
Thank you.
We've just had a question come through. How did you find developing the stories whilst playing roles on both sides of the camera? Thank you very much for using the title of this Q&A. I appreciate it. Who would like to take it? Did you feel that, I suppose the question then is, did you feel that it changed at all? And if you weren't necessarily the director, but a producer, did that influence what you then had to do? If you were then a performer, and it is, often run and gun on smaller productions, did that massively affect what the outcome was, what your end kind of performance was like?
I think sorry.
No, go ahead, please.
I find that I cut a lot of my own stuff out when the time gets panicked. Like if we need to cut, like I know with Becoming Kelly, there was an ending scene that Valerie Sard and I had written, and we were like, this is a big moment. And in the moment we were panicking, we're like, just cut all my lines, and we had to kind of go back and make that work later. And we were like, what was the plan there? A lot of times you're in that moment. So I think having the creative freedom to be so in control of what you've written, what you're playing, almost sometimes like it helps and it can hurt, I think.
Yeah.
I think being as open as possible. This is the most cliche I will sound, but I think being as open as possible to the creative process and understanding that it's a team effort, it's a group effort between everybody, and trusting other people's opinions with your project. As a writer director who was in front of the camera, that I was, it was precious to me. That was my material that we were working on. But you have to be open to everybody else. When you're in front of the camera, you don't have enough time to really break down a scene and go, okay, is this working? And step outside of yourself. I think you truly have to be a psychopath to be able to do that. But I think that openness allows you to find something new. I know in our second episode, we had a performer come in, and that actor was fresh on the show. He had no idea about the first episode, and we were able to play more because he was able to open up, and those were the moments where I felt the most in front of the camera and away from directing while also performing, and that kind of vitality was so helpful on day 3 of a Nightmare 4-day thing. But yeah, I think being open is really the most important thing. When you have to wear so many hats, you just have to trust other people can kind of lighten that load for you.
Yeah, and I being writer on set, I'm actually really not precious, but I think people think I'm going to be, and so I would get the director come up and go, is it okay if we change, and I think if they didn't have the writer on set, they'd just be like, we're just going to make this change because we have to and we can't you know, it is what it is, and I'm the director. But having me on set, be like, is it all right? Can we do that? I'm like, yeah, it's totally fine. Most things are totally fine. And then in post, being able to make, I think like Lisa, being able to make calls where I'm like, okay, actually we don't need this, and I'm going to kill my baby, and I feel comfortable doing that because I'm the writer and I know that it's going to work. So I guess it being on both sides throughout the whole process, it does develop in a way that maybe it wouldn't do if I was completely separate from the rest of the process.
It's an interesting point you both bring up, which is that when you are doing so many things, and when it is, if it's your writing or if you're directing it, when you're so, tightly controlling to make sure everything gets done, how do you make sure that in actual fact you're loose enough to pay attention when there's an actor giving you amazing work that you can free you up as well, or there's people who have your back and who want to change the writing because ultimately it will work the best for the project. But when you're so busy trying to make sure that everything gets done, I don't think it's always the easiest to relinquish control, even if you think you're in a chilled state. So Ken, you both work on Also With You together. Now, is that, I always wanted to ask about this, is that an extended project or is that a standalone piece? Was the idea that then you move forward with this as a series?
This is forever the question we're getting.
Yeah. When we were filming this, we were also performing Arthur Miller's The Crucible at night. So it was kind of switching hats back and forth. And so
almost identical pieces, I see.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. One really influenced the other. And we had to kill a lot of darlings because we had to make things work in the time that we had, just to go off of your point. So yeah, we're really still open to it. We purposely left it open-ended because we love the characters, we love the story. It took a lot of post to create that storyline. I don't know. So what do you think?
Well, when we first started writing, we were hoping to create a whole series. But given the time, as we've been talking today, the time that we had while I was down in Virginia, we decided that it would be best to put all of our focus into one episode, which turned into a short film. We've gotten a lot of people coming back to us and saying that these characters can't die. We really want to see what happens with the four of them. How are they going to move forward in their community? How are they going to relate to each other? And I personally would love to continue exploring that. And I think there's room for them to grow together. So the answer is TBD.
Fair enough. I mean, it's testament to the actual show, because you finish it. It's just not a slow burn, but you kind of go, oh, okay, what's happening here? And then by the end, you're like, oh no, they can't be finished. Where, for people who haven't seen it, if it's all right to give away part of the plot line, Also With You is about two married couples who are friends who decide that quite early into their 20s that life can get boring. So maybe if they enjoyed to partner up, I suppose is the best, most British way to put it. And it's the comedy that ensues because of that. It's incredibly well filmed because it could be very risque, but in actual fact just turns out to be very funny and playful. And you just feel like you want them to continue. It's very, very well done.
Thank you.
On the flip side, in the kind of like contrast, is Michelle with Ruthless, which is a period drama, I suppose you could put it, but takes on a more serious note. Is that something that you have leaned towards in the past more? Is that something that do you prefer kind of drama? And if so, producing, directing, or performing in it? Or is it something that's the first time you've tried it?
I would say I typically prefer drama. I enjoy comedy too. But for me, I think, this film especially, I could relate to it. I could relate to the entire story, and I could relate to the character. And for me, the key word that kept coming up was fight. Getting your fight, having your fight. And it's an action word that's more specific than, take charge of your life and try and wish and want. that's not good enough. You have to fight, and fight isn't the middle of the story. It's not the end of the story. The fight is the beginning. And so we really, with Ruthless, we wanted to show the fight is the pilot episode. It's in your face. This is where it starts. So where is it going to go from here?
Yeah, it's quite an unassuming setup, to begin with. It is a woman and a child, in a shack almost, and then it just, as you use the word, it's relentless. Like it is just the hardship befalls her, and then when that's kind of, you think she's safe, more comes and more comes. It's an incredible watch, but you're just like, oh, please, just give her a break already.
She needs a break.
Yeah, and that's the first episode alone.
Mm-hmm.
And then Alice, moving to you, I would class it as dry comedy. Is that fair to say when it comes to Lulu von Loser?
Yeah, it is.
And is that your style of comedy? Would you?
Sorry, I didn't get it. Yeah, I guess. Well, it's not my first piece that I've written, so I dealt with different kind of topics, but I think that's what one can call my voice, if that's not a big word. I don't know. But yeah, it's probably the right tragic comedy stuff. Yeah, I guess
it feels very realistic, but also there's always just a feeling of tongue in cheek with the piece, which is, a woman looking at her own life being performed in front of her, and kind of the ridiculousness that comes with that.
Yeah.
From across all your work, what was the length of time that it took from beginning to end? How was some of these run and gun as they kind of, with Ray yourself, there's a very much like handheld kind of, like just a fast pace to it all, which matches the comedy. But what was the actual length of time for each of your projects?
Well, for me, Undependent was the first, scripted project that I had done. I'm actually a stand-up comic primarily, and then I also do film work because I love it. And so before this, I had done a documentary. That was actually my first film project, and it was Be a Man, and it was about my struggles to identify what masculinity was, because I didn't have a dad growing up before my wife gave birth to our son. And so I made the documentary. It was hubris. It was total hubris to make this thing. And I think we made it for $5,000, and it was a feature-length documentary. And we were lucky enough to get picked up for distribution. We were on Hulu. We were on SBS Australia and a couple other places like that. And so I kind of got thrown into more legitimate film that way, and found myself with a group of people that wanted to make more stuff. And my best friend, Derek Furtado, and I were talking about the next project, and everybody was like, "Oh, what's the next thing? Are you going to do another documentary?" Things like that. And I wanted to do something genuine, and it felt disingenuous to go and do, Be a Man 2, or, some other kind of documentary that kind of shoved me into the story. And I just didn't want to do that, because Be a Man was so genuine. And we talked forever about what the next project would be. And then we realized that it was right in front of us. So Undependent is, it's a mockumentary about two buffoons trying to make a hit documentary, whatever the next big water cooler, Tiger King or Making a Murderer kind of thing will be. And then the flaws that are in them that kind of ruin everything. So yeah, I that run and gun style, that's all I know. That's anytime I've been on a traditional set, I just look at everything and I'm like, oh my God, this is luxurious. You guys have separate rooms for things, and it's I think that's all I know is just grab the camera, go get the shot, and ask for permission after.
So Lisa, with your Becoming Kelly, it kind of transitions. It's almost two pieces. It's it's a comedy drama, but then at the end becomes a music video, a very well produced music video. how was it kind of like balancing that world of kind of two different genres? And did you find that one was easier than the other?
To be totally honest, Valerie Lessard, who again is Kelly in it, and the story was mostly hers, and then we wrote it together, but that's all her. Like, I was there, I was like, I want to write some fun dialogue, I want to go and make like a stupid joke, you know, but she had that vision of like, I mean, I think a lot of people feel this way where, let's be honest, like, I feel like I'm a very basic human, like, girl. I'm like a very boring, basic girl, you know? And it's like that story of like how you eventually realize that everyone needs a voice and you need to figure out what you want to say. And I think at that time, Valerie was very much like in that time for herself and being like, I'm going to show that transition, but we want it to be lighthearted and fun. So I think it's just the collaboration between the two of us. And this might be a little bit different than what you asked me, so I'm sorry. But
no, that's great. That's great.
Also, something when we were talking about the timelines, and I don't know if anyone else can relate to this, which is why I would love to get feedback on it. Is like we shot this in like 2 months. It was done, right? But our post-production lasted forever, and it was mostly because we used editors that were so talented. Like, I can't even tell you. Like, I see their work and I'm like, what have I done? Did I go to the right school? Like, right, all this stuff. And then we didn't like it. Like, it just wasn't the right fit. And ultimately, we realized we're the right people to edit our own project. We're the voice that needs to do it, you know? I don't know if you guys have ever experienced that, like imposter syndrome of like, you got to hire somebody that's like the best. And in the end, you're like, you know what? I should just do this.
I mostly had the opposite, which was, oh God, this is an awful phrase, but pay peanuts, get monkeys. Does that translate? Okay. And if you don't pay much, you don't get, like, yeah. And I had the opposite, where I found someone who was really fit in my budget, and they did an initial edit of season 2, and it made me want to cry. And we tried, and then we just realized it was just not working. And I found someone who, look, it wasn't really, really expensive, like not the, you know, but it's still someone who was emerging, but just more experience in TV and comedy, and just knew the genre, and the difference was crazy. I couldn't edit 30. It's just like not even in my skill set. So that was never an option. I did very basic editing just for socials and stuff and publicity, but could never have done it myself. So I'm really beholden to whoever I can get on board to edit. And our season 1 editor decided to travel the world, pre-COVID, obviously. So in 2019, and we lost her, and I just felt completely lost. But then, yeah, the second editor for season 2 we found, and just the difference it makes, like the difference a good editor makes is insane. I didn't appreciate that.
You make it break a show, the edit. It's as you were talking about, like finding someone who's maybe fantastic at the job, but if it doesn't get the right tone of what you're after, you know, all that footage, all that work just doesn't sit well together. It's a strange thing, post-production. I don't know how many of you have found this, but there's so many things you can do as a producer working on, you know, both sides, but then suddenly post-production, I don't know if you've had it where you actually have to relinquish control and give it to people because there are just some jobs that aren't in your skill set. And suddenly that's when the length of time just extends and extends, as you've either got someone very talented on board who's taking a long time because they are busy, or you have somebody who just is not particularly good at the job, but trying their best. Was there anything else aggravating in post-production that you all encountered? Not to focus on the negative, but while we're on the subject.
I think the most common. Oh, sorry.
I was just gonna say, editing. The two things don't cheap on: editing and audio. I think, because it's especially with comedies, like a good editor can kill a joke, and a good editor can make a bad joke incredible. So definitely, and you need to be able to hear the joke. So those two spots, I would say, are the best, are most important.
Yeah, there's a silly saying, like you can have there are 3 things: fast, cheap, and good, and you can have 2 of those things. And that is so true when it comes to post-production, because, you know, when you're shooting during production, you can adjust, you can adapt, you can change. Okay, this scene is not taking place here, it's taking place here now. Or we can use the same thing, we can roll 2 scenes into one, scrap this. When it comes to the edit, what you have is what you have, and that's it. And a good editor, especially in comedy, I'm only coming from comedy, so I don't know too much about drama. I imagine it's the same, but in comedy, the tone and the timing is so vitally important. And if you have a fantastic editor that has a really bad sense of humor, it's not going to work, you know. And look, for us, I completely empathize with Lisa, because our time in post-production, I mean, like I said, we shot this in 4 days, and our post-production was like 10 months, because our editor, fantastic, Chuck Staten, love the guy. He was working on this as much as he could, and he liked the project, and we gelled really well together. So it was just months of getting together. I was there for most of the edit, and, you know, retiming certain jokes and things like that. But it took time, and it was either that or, you know, kind of shunt it off to somebody else. I can't handle the idea of handing it to somebody else and then letting them do what they need to do. I not in a negative way. I'm not controlling.
You do not come across it at all. It's fine.
But yeah, it's still a collaborative process. An edit is you exist in a vacuum. As the director, I was sitting in. You just exist in a vacuum with your editor. And in comedy, it's like, is this joke good, or have we just seen it so many times we've lost our minds?
Yeah.
And you know, that process can take a while.
How many of you did? How many of you? I've lost my question halfway through. How many of you did the kind of budgeted for the actual, you know, pre-production and for the shoot, and then kind of were then trying to find the funds afterward? I hear this time and time again from people that, like, okay, we've got enough money to prep this, we've got enough money for 3 days filming, and then we'll figure it out afterwards.
We did that. We
appreciate your honesty. It's good.
Yeah, we had enough to shoot for was it 5 days, Ken? 5 or 6 days, and then we crowdfunded after that. So we were simultaneously working with our editor with the belief that we would raise all the money, and crowdfunding on Seed and Spark, and it worked. And I think when you're independent, you have to do that. I'm currently doing that right now on a different project.
Plug it.
Yeah,
no.
plug away.
I'm currently campaigning for the Hunted NYCSS. It's on Seed and Spark. We have 6 days left.
You sold that so well. You're just like, and get to the end.
This is also with you time.
I'll give my Venmo information out at the end of this.
That's great. Seed and Spark is a fantastic platform. It's 2 amazing women.
They're amazing, and they offer so many resources for people who have done who are doing this for the first time. And it was really helpful for us because we had never done anything remotely like I think we were raising $11,000 or something like that. So it's achievable, but with their help, I think we got a lot farther than we would have on our own.
So as we're talking about funding, where, if anyone wants to talk about this openly, who or where did you get your funding from this? Was it raised? Did you crowdfund it? Was it scraped together from other jobs? How did you get your project off the ground?
Well, I was going to say we did kind of the opposite. We filmed without the funds, which was...
How'd you do that?
Yeah, I was going to ask the same question.
Okay, so our funds came from for season 2 from a few different avenues. We weren't going to make a second season, and then I had applied for a matched funding thing through a body called Creative Partnerships Australia, and they would give us 10K if we could raise at least 10K. So matched funding. But we needed to shoot while one of our main stars was in Sydney in December. So we had to, and that was like the next month. Thankfully, I'd already written season 2 while season 1 was being promoted. So I had it sitting there. I just never thought it was going to happen. And so we had to shoot. So we just shot it, and don't recommend doing that just because, you know, I'm not a millionaire. So I had to just pay for stuff. And I knew we couldn't dedicate enough time and energy to crowdfunding well if I did it at the same time as filming. I just knew that was going to be terrible. So I didn't. And then once filming was done, we did a crowdfunding campaign like in March in time for International Women's Day, because we've got a lot of, you know, our shows, you know, primarily made by women for women. So we launched it there at a crowdfunding party and raised like $7,000 that night.
Wow.
And then we had, I don't know, 30 days or something after that and just like really went hard on the crowdfunding, and we raised 21,000, which our goal was 20, so we were stoked. And then they gave us that 10,000 match funding.
Yay!
Wow.
It
does feel like filmmakers need to go now to Australia and Germany. These seems to be the places to where to go.
Sign me up.
In keeping with mine with that, how are your respective countries when it comes to funding, when it comes to kind of helping back filmmakers? How have you found it?
Like in Germany, it's a very slow process. That's why I decided the end of 2019 that I wanted to produce it myself and not look for a producer who's then looking for money and writing all the applications for state funding. Like we got in the different states in Germany, like it's a public funding system where you can apply. I think it's similar in Australia. So you apply for script writing or fiction films or series, whatever. But I didn't want to. I chose at the beginning. I didn't want to do that because I know how long it takes and how long you really find a producer who understands what you want to do and everything else. And so I started writing the scripts in winter 2019, and we started shooting on the 1st of February 2020 without any budget, but with a very small team. They were all highly motivated because they just liked the idea. And then we didn't shot it continuously. We shot it in a very particular way because I was actually also pregnant. I'm playing a pregnant character, but I was pregnant myself, so it had that documentary element in it. So we were shooting very pregnant friendly, so not every day for long hours, but from February until the first lockdown in March, April, like maybe twice a week, and then a week none at all, and then we had more time to prepare the next shooting days. So that was a really, really good way of doing this without any money, because everyone on my team could actually do their other work, like paid work. So yeah, it was good. And then in the end, when I had the pilot ready, I sent it around, and then I was so lucky that one TV commissioner, I think is the word, maybe, from this TV channel ZDF liked it, and she also liked the scripts, and now I sold it the whole season, and it will be screened on TV in Germany next May.
That's amazing news. Congratulations.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's quite interesting because it can be quite claustrophobic when you have a core team all working together, and it doesn't necessarily stop when the day, when the filming stops. That's not necessarily the end of the day. So to be able to take breaks in between and come back excited about what you're working on is quite a unique way of working. It sounds lovely.
Yeah, I didn't really know if it was a good idea to really shoot the whole season. That would be my question to you guys, because so many people just shoot a pilot and then they go and find maybe some funding to shoot the rest. And I wanted to do the whole thing. So in the end, I was lucky and it turned out well. But it might have been also the case that maybe just the pilot would have been enough to find someone to produce everything else with money. So I don't know how he did it. If you already produced the whole thing, the whole season, or Trisha, I know you did already 2 seasons.
Yeah, we did 2 seasons. And look, probably in hindsight, I should have. I think it's a good idea to find where your show is going to go in terms of distribution and knowing that there's a place for it before you make the whole thing. I didn't really think about it that much before I started season 1, and yeah, like we struggle with distribution. That's where we're still struggling. So when I hear your story about selling your show, I'm like, oh my god, that's amazing. We still don't know where season 2 is going to go, and it's just hearing stuff about 20 think more people at home, more appetite for shows, and we've done so well critically, and but yeah, we're still struggling to find a home for 30. So I don't know, maybe it would be better to just focus on one episode and then test the waters and then go from there. It's probably a smarter producer way of doing things, but at the end of the day, no regrets. I'm happy that we've got our show, and I'm proud of that. So yeah, I don't know, there's pros and cons, I guess, and at least it's done and it was totally in our control. So
yeah, sorry, I was just going to say there's a huge like catch-22. I think in the States, whenever I talk to industry, whenever there's a conversation happening or a conference call, you'll either hear like, "Oh, don't do a pilot, just do a sizzle," and God, why would you make a pilot? Then it's locked in, and anybody looking at it, any exec is going to look at that, and if they don't like your sweater or something like that, they can't change it. So don't do that. Just do a sizzle. And then that's half of the people, and then the other half are like, "Oh, do a whole web series. Just do a whole web series. That'll be the thing that gets you where you need to go." So yeah, it's crazy. I mean, sometimes I'm like, we should have just done the sizzle instead of making the pilot when we were talking to a network. And but at the end of the day, though, it's like, well, I had a lot of fun making it, and it was kind of a random chance that we were able to make it with the budget that we had. Our producing partner, Lee Leshin, I met him through doing Be a Man, the documentary, and then we were working on this idea for Undependent, and to put it bluntly, we used dead grandmother money to make the show. Lee's grandmother passed away, and he had a little bit of money, and he was like, well, she would want me to do this, and I was like, are you sure? That's a lot on my shoulders. And so we were able to do it that way. But I think every circumstance is totally different for every single creator. How much money you have, how you're getting it, what show you want to make or short film, and ultimately where you see that going. All of those things go into the decision making of what the actual piece will be and how you make that.
I think it's true. There's a question that comes up time and time again, which is kind of, do you feel that there's a shift, I suppose, where in your countries of how distribution works, of new, especially with web series, of kind of, has there been a newfound respect for that, and with kind of more markets for short films? Has that passed on to any of you? Has there been a kind of a change in how people view what you do? Silence again.
You can certainly. Sorry, go ahead.
No, we could do this all day. We could do.
You
imagine
first.
if that just
You would
went
both
for an
make
hour.
great
No,
British people.
you guys.
You're fantastic, Jen.
No, I mean, I think it's for the last, when I started doing season 1, that was like 2016. I think there's definitely way more awareness about what a web series is, and way more opportunities in terms of funding and distribution, and just like the legitimacy around web series and the interest from government funding bodies. Not that we got any from the government, but anyway, I think that is growing. But in Australia, they still don't really know what to do with web series. It's still particularly independent web series that haven't been made by the government. Well, not heavily funded by the government. We're still finding our feet. Yeah.
And have any of you had any kind of involvement or success with online platforms? The kind of the Netflix of the short film and the series world. Have you ever been broached with that or by them?
I mean, I don't. for web series specifically, I haven't, but I know Shorts TV. Sorry, that's my dog.
Yes, Kieran's, my God.
But I know that like Shorts TV was my first short film that we did. How Did He Tell? Back in 2017. We were able to distribute on that platform, and I know it's one that I'm going to go back to. So for anyone that's looking, it was great to us. And Shorts
TV is that what you said?
Yeah, I think it has an affiliation with, from my understanding, with DirecTV. They use like their apps and their cable system, so it can get onto people's TVs, but it's also streaming online with subscriptions. So try it.
This is the kind of information that people watch this for. You know, it's finding out what other filmmakers do, and you know what's worked for them. We've got, I think, time for one last question, which has been, let me find it, which is actually relates well to all of you. I find that with all of your films and your series, the production value is fantastic. You know, there's been a level that just, there's a reason why, you know, you're doing fantastic on the festival circuit. Is there something you can tell to people who are watching this? Like, what would be your key to getting rid of the police? What would be your key to getting the best production value when you may not have the biggest budget or the most amount of time? How did you achieve it? I mean, with Michelle for a start, that it's Ruthless is
being a period piece. Having a good location really helped our production value. Having a really good location, we had awesome equipment that helped with the production value too. And then wardrobe, having a solid wardrobe for a period piece makes or breaks it. So, you know, we just did the pilot because, like you mentioned, budget and all of that. There was a lot to do with a small budget and still have high production value. But yeah, location and equipment, and then storyboarding, having a vision exactly how we wanted it laid out, I think was very helpful to production value.
Can I ask a question about your period piece? Because that to me is like, I would love to do a short. I have like a million shorts in the 1940s, and I'm like, I'll never do them because it's just so intimidating to me. Did you spend a good portion of your budget on costuming? Like, is there a percentage breakdown that was focused on that? I'm just so curious how that happened.
Right. No, luckily it's only a 4-person cast. So my wardrobe was made for me, which was very helpful. And the other ones were just pieced together, and they did it themselves, and we kind of offered some guidance and some help. But we were very lucky that the cast believed in the story and put forth the effort themselves to get solid wardrobe, honestly. We didn't have a big budget.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
Anybody else?
Say try. You got to just kind of keep doing it and see what you like. I think that it's really important to generate your own work. That's always been my thing when people ask me how to get started. I'm just like, even if it's terrible, do it with your phone. You just have to do it. And then you're going to figure out what you like. You're going to say, oh, I wish this. I wish I had this. I want to get this. Like, you just have to learn it in a great way. Like, just create fun 2-minute videos and just see what you like.
I think knowing the final product that you're reaching for goes a long way in upping your production value. Coming from the documentary background of making, I keep saying, I'm sorry, Making Be a Man. We had zero budget. The money that we raised through some investors, like I said, $5,000. That just went to gear. That just went to getting the cameras and audio equipment. Everything else was just, you want to come and do a thing? And we were able to do that, but always with the final product in mind. And what we found in that translated to Undependent, which was just, we want this to look, professionally done and, broadcast ready. Here are the things we need to achieve that. And the biggest thing was going into this and in the writing process, figuring out what we could cheat, what we could limit. Saul, you mentioned at the very beginning of this, the 2 episodes are, there's very few locations in that, and that's intentional. We wanted to keep the 2 episodes down to, I think, 4 locations total, so we could get the most out of that. And then, making sure that the cameras were top notch and everybody was a professional doing that was a huge part of it. And I always err on the side of minimalism. You can make something with a ton of bells and whistles and it'll look like crap, or you can make something clean and simple look like $1 million, and sometimes literally. I think that's the best cheat that I've ever found, is erring on the side of intentional minimalism makes everything work a little bit better. Whether it's putting in your graphics or anything like that, or even just down to the shooting process. For us, one of the best ways that we saved money was, again, the documentary style. Lighting went out the window. We shot everything with, I think, one light box that we could just stick on a clamp and move around the locations, and it allowed us to save a lot of money but still look really, really nice in the finished product.
Fantastic, guys. This is the hour has just gone by. I want to thank you all so much for coming and joining and just sharing your experience. There's nothing better, I think, for filmmakers to watch and listen to than people share their experience of what it's like, especially in the past year. It's the more information, the better. I'm going to play the clips of your films again, because now everyone's got time to actually know more about your projects, to meet you all properly. I think it's only fitting that they can just see another clip from you. And please go and check them out on social media. They have made an array of just phenomenal work. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me. Let's do this next week.
Yeah, let's do it again.
Yeah.
Yeah, everybody.
I think we broke them.
Guys?
You're joshing us.
Oh!
I was all like, right now, man, sex right now.
Right now? Like right
On
now
the counter, over these muffins.
Yes, girl.
Why are you so worried about Savannah? She's fine.
I don't know, like nobody's listening? Like, what does she even do these things anyway?
She's following her dreams. I would love to have a dream like that.
You do have a dream. To be a young mom. It's just less cool, doesn't make it less important.
Hey, where are you?
Making a coffee.
God, you work hard.
I work very hard, thank you. And I'm actually the big boss today. Charlie's crook.
I think she might be pregnant.
I thought she doesn't want kids.
Yeah, but she's been off a lot lately and talking about succession plans. John, my bump dial is buzzing.
That's not a thing.
Gut, dann guck die Schwangerschaft mal an. Möchtest du sie vielleicht umarmen? Oder wäre das zu viel?
Okay. I think we made a great first impression. Okay, that was good. That was good.
You think that was good?
Yeah. Did you hear what he said? Silverlight Studios thinks that we're great. They love us.
They don't even know us, man. He was walking out the door as soon as we started talking.
Mr. Harmon, I ain't got no grain, no yeast, no sugar, and I got no money. And now I ain't got no more biscuits.
I'll make sure the boys get you what you need.
Thank you so much for joining us for this first of our Q&As for 2021. Such an array of fantastic filmmakers, and as you can see from the clip, just a wonderful, different amount of films, from comedy to period drama. Don't forget us to join us tomorrow. We have a Q&A with actor Kristen Atherton. She'll be moderating people from our official selections. Happy New Year, everybody, and it's great to be back. Take care.